All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. I'm your host, Christian Brindle. I'm joined with my co-host, Glen Shelton, and we are on episode 55, my friends. Five squared. I don't think it comes out.
Good morning.
Oh, my goodness. Glen, good morning. How is the morning treating you?
Good. It's treating me well. I'm jealous of your blueberries. One thing I was gonna, Christian, before the show was just mowing blueberries in front of me, and it was hard to watch out of jealousy. But one thing I was gonna bring up that came up yesterday. Are you noticing this like surge of podcasts among folks in the industry? I'm seeing quite a few different podcasts popping up.
I will be completely honest with you. I have not noticed that. It's funny, I'll see comments from time to time in the group, and there'll be like someone that I know in the industry, and they'll be like, yeah, I know what you mean. Our show went in the first 6 months. I'm like, I didn't even know you had a show. I'm like, you're not hitting my radar at all.
But that's part of what I'm realizing with our podcast is even though we're doing this 4 days a week in the group, I'll do a post about it and there'll be like 10 people in the comments like, where's this podcast? How do I listen to it? It's like, wow, man, our visibility is not what I think it is, apparently.
I think it is what you think it is, but it's not 100%, right? Of the community. I think that's where you're always going to have those types of comments that are being made. But no, I haven't noticed it necessarily. Like, give me some examples. Like, maybe don't name names necessarily, but like, I'm curious now. Like, I'm like, who is podcasting? I can't even think.
I'll tell you the most recent one. I'll tell you Josh Lustig most recently.
Okay, I saw that one. You tagged me in that.
And I tagged you in it. But before Josh, I saw maybe 2 other people who were like, can't wait to start this podcast. I'm so excited about my new podcast. I'm like, man, good luck, you guys. It's a tough grind out there. The average here, I'll give you a pop quiz. What is the average? We talk about the average Medicare agent writing 4 apps a year. Okay.
Yeah.
The average podcast show. Do you know what the average number of episodes that gets produced for a new show?
I'm going to say 2.
No, it's more than that. It's more than that.
5.
7. It's 7.
Okay.
So most people will do 7 episodes and then it's done. It's done.
Is my mic coming through okay? Is it sounding okay this morning? Okay. It's not going in my headphones, but that's okay. That's quite all right.
Did you see the comment, the post yesterday about your mic, by the way?
I did. I found it hysterical.
Yeah. Any rebuttal or anything you'd like to comment or mention on that?
I think, the comment, if it's the comment that I think you're referring to is the comment about the mic costing more than someone's first car kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. It probably costs more than my first car too. I don't necessarily have a rebuttal. It's more like, as time has gone on, as I've evolved as a content creator, the need for better quality tech has emerged and evolved over time. And so, one of the things when I first started making YouTube videos and podcasts and everything like that, and I mean, this is my 3rd podcast that I've created over the years that are industry related. And the thing that I always felt like I could notice was no matter what mic I was using, it seemed like my audio was just garbage. And when I would go back and listen back to content or clips or anything like that. And so, I think it's, if you're going to do content on a regular basis, a really good mic is a great investment because especially on like the audio only platforms, like that's the only way they're really consuming you is by listening. Yeah. And so, and I understand it's an expensive mic, you get the accessories, you get the stand, you get the focus right in there. I mean, it might be pushing $1,000 almost, not quite, maybe, like $800, $900 all out the door, something like that. But it is a fantastic mic. And I think it's worth it if you want to be a content creator. But if you're just starting and you've never made anything yet, Maybe just start with like a clip.
Use your phone. Yeah, use your AirPods.
Yeah.
Yeah, use
Yeah.
anything.
You don't need this mic to start.
No.
But when you're for me, it's like 7 years in content creating now, because I started the Everything Medicare podcast in 18. Like when you're 7 years in, it's not the end of the world to splurge a little bit on good equipment.
I think this could be an interesting kind of pre-topic to cross-selling today is content creation, because I know a lot of you are wanting to get into it. And when I mentioned these other there's plenty of room for more podcasts. I'm not trying to bash people saying you shouldn't do a podcast. I'm not trying to gatekeep. I'm not trying to say like we're the only podcasters in the space. I don't think that's the case at all. I was just surprised to see this kind of trend. Because again, historically, I almost look at podcasting like it is saturated. Like there are so many podcasts out there, but clearly I'm wrong. There's still a lot more to come. But before we get into more of this content talk, I do want to mention Freebie Friday tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're giving away 100 Medicare supplement leads from Lead Heroes. These are exclusive double opt-in call verified Medicare supplement leads. If you are trying to stay busy, you want to sell more med sup, you want to keep Medicare supplement alive, you don't want to go to that funeral, you don't want to hear the bagpipes playing, you don't want that sadness in your heart that Christian and I have talked about on the show. Help us help the industry, help Medicare supplement. All you have to do is comment on one of the live streams either today or the other 3 that we've already done this week. That gets you up to 4 potential entries, and we're going to give away 10 leads to 10 different winners.
Wow.
So your odds are pretty stinking high that you're going to win. If you just comment on every live stream that we've done this week, you get 4 entries and there's 10 winners. I don't know what the actual math is yet because I don't know how many people are actually going to be in the giveaway, but I'd imagine your odds are pretty good. So that's all you got to do. Comment below, ask a question, just tell us how handsome we are. Talk about, Dr. Oz is wearing a 7-figure Medicare hat today. You could mention that if you want. Whatever your heart desires.
It's not like a blank check was exchanged or anything like that to good old Oz, but
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Once he gets sworn in, I'm assuming we'll get some sponsorship money.
He's doing a press conference on TV with that hat on.
Could you imagine? He's got like a 7-figure T-shirt and hat. He's like, CMS is gonna have to get some of these restrictions lifted.
I would die.
That would be amazing.
My life would be over. I would die and go to heaven, and I wouldn't need anything else. My experiences are complete.
We'll figure it out. We've got to be able to network too. I keep thinking about that one conversation we had where they were like, it was again like 2 degrees or whatever, 3 degrees from Oz. I'm like, we've got to be able to hurdle that. There's got to be a way that we can get in the room with Dr. Oz. Like, there's got to be a way to be like, put this hat on. Let's take a picture.
What a bad look for him that would have been. 7-figure Medicare.
He's a stock owner in UHC. Come on, baby. Let's go.
Imagine the national imagine the national crisis that would cause. It would be on news all the time, be like CMS administrator Dr. Oz gets caught wearing a hat that says 7-figure Medicare agent profiting off of Medicare beneficiary.
Where's Doge when you need it?
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think the whole conversation about the podcast stuff is interesting. I mean, this is my observation, and I don't say this to cast any aspersions on anyone.
Ooh,
but
big word.
But what I have seen on the podcast that I'm aware of in our space is I haven't seen a lot of them that are very like consistent. It's like they'll make an episode here and there when they feel like it. They're not on a schedule like we are. Some of them will go a month between episodes and things like that. And me as a content creator, it just makes me nauseous a little bit. I'm just like, And it makes me think, like, when I see that type of stuff, I'm like, well, no wonder I don't know about your show. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing one a month, you're doing 12 a year. That's not going to get the job done.
No.
I just think people feel like they can put out a piece of content here and there and it's going to have big impact. It might have some impact, but if you really want to have your business be impacted in a really big way from content marketing, you have to be really consistent. Like,
You do.
I'm talking one a week,
At least.
at least.
Yeah.
I have put out, between our 2 YouTube channels, 2,100 videos over the years.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
And, you could maybe even make the argument that I've put out too much content.
Most likely.
It takes away from each other. But if I had to pick one extreme, I'd rather have too much than too little.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Totally agree with that.
So when I hear people making podcasts and things like that, like, it might sound cynical when I say this, but the first thought that comes to my head is like, I'm like 99% chance you're not consistent with this or you don't stick to it. That's the first thing I think about. I'm like, have fun with that.
I think that's one of the biggest factors of success. You look at someone like Joe Rogan, he's on episode like 2,300, you guys, 2,300. Yeah. It's insane. It's insane. I mean, he's just a machine at pumping out those episodes. I've seen him do 2 a day. I've seen him do, 5, 6, 7 a week. So I think the consistency in how often and from what I've heard and seen, also being very scheduled with it too, because people do come, even if you only have a small audience, I think people do come to think, oh, I wonder if there's another episode, or I wonder if I missed anything. And so, if you're kind of all over the place, 1 week you release 4, 5, 6 episodes, and then 2 weeks you don't do any, and then you come back to it. It's hard for your audience to find you. And this is whether this could be senior facing, this could be agent facing, this could be in some other niche. But I think consistency is a huge part of being successful with any type of content.
Yeah. And when you are putting out content, I think another thing a lot of people get wrong is they look at it like the content is supposed to be an infomercial for whatever it is that they do for however long they do their show, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever it is like that, which that's not long enough, by the way, in my opinion. Like, for a pod, YouTube video, different. Pod, not so much. I think pod, I think you need 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
This show is every day an hour, basically. But I see a lot of them, and it's like, you could watch every episode they've ever put out, and you're not going to learn anything except for how much whatever they're selling costs. And no one wants to watch an infomercial. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Who's going to do that? Who's going to sit in their free time and watch an infomercial? I don't get it. I don't understand the mindset to it. I think you need to be willing to share, be willing to be interesting. You need to be willing to bring value, and you need to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not me. Would I want to watch this show if I was in the industry and I'm watching this show and I don't know who I am? Like, would I want to sit and watch this? And so many people just get it so wrong. They're like, oh, content marketing, I'm just going to pitch 99% of the time. And I'm like, no, like, a plug is one thing. Creating an infomercial that you call a podcast is a totally different thing. No one's going to watch.
Yeah. That's a really great point. I think trying to empathize and put yourself in the audience's perspective is really important. I tried to do that. Pretty much from day one of any content that I've been a part of, I've tried to really have a view of, okay, is this something that's interesting to the agent, to the industry? Is this something that I personally would want to consume or share, or tag someone that I know and be like, hey, you need to check this out. That's where I think there's a ton of gold. If you can have that perspective and you're not just like, I'm just gonna talk or film myself, and it doesn't I just think most of you overcomplicate it, if I'm being honest. The reason
Yeah.
most of you probably fail at this is you're making it way more complicated than it needs to be. Christian and I have many times had very, very simple perspectives as far as like operationally how we're going to do a podcast. Like, hey, we got this guest, or hey, this is the topic we want to discuss today. Getting lost on expensive equipment, like we were talking about earlier. I think that's one that I see all the time. Getting lost in, well, I don't really have a big audience yet, so I want to try to build my audience before like I really start putting too much content out. Put the content out, the audience will come, or they won't, right? Or they won't, but you got to do the content.
And even if they don't at first, you can along the way take a step back and look for areas to improve, right? Like maybe it's your content itself, maybe it's the production value, but like you can improve over time, right?
Sure.
Like I was interviewed on Cody Askin's podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was asking me about this subject actually. And one thing that I talked about that I found kind of interesting for the subject line was the first time I interviewed him, I was doing an audio only podcast. I didn't know how to do video podcasts. I didn't understand. I was like, hey? I was a chimp. I was legit chimp trying to do a podcast. And
he's a gorilla now.
Yeah, I'm a
he's
gorilla.
a gorilla
I've
now.
grown up now.
He's a big monkey now.
But like, I was talking to Cody. I'm like, the first time I interviewed you, and I believe it was like 2018, 2019, something like that. He was on the phone on speakerphone, and I was using an app on my phone to record the conversation.
Yeah.
And that podcast grew substantially, right? Like it became a force of nature, and the production value was as bad as it gets, right? Like I could have made the same show with a tape recorder and a phone, like a wall phone,
right?
Back in those days. I mean, that's the same type of like sophistication that I was running with that podcast. So you look at to what things have evolved to today, it's night and day, but we're also talking about a 7-year trajectory, right? Where I just continued to learn, I continued to get better, I continued to try things. Oh, that worked well, that did not work well. One thing, I'll share a nugget if I may, for anybody that is an aspiring content creator out there. This is what I did early on that I think really helped me. I would take a look at what do I like to watch show-wise. Like, what are the podcasts I'm listening to? Are there radio shows I'm listening to? Anything like that. Like, what am I listening to right now? What do I enjoy, and why do I enjoy it? Like, not necessarily like the subject matter, but like the flow of the show, like the articulation of things, the humor of it, the dynamic of it, like the feel of the show. Like, what did I like about the things I was listening to and why? And then I would try to take little pieces of that and how I can implement it into my own show. And I don't think that's bad at all. Now, completely ripping off and trying to copy is a totally different thing, but taking inspiration is a great thing, especially when you don't know what you're doing. You need some kind of model to follow.
I totally agree. You kind of have to, you kind of take pieces from what you know, and it's like building Legos, and you kind of make it your own. I don't get too lost in the end result, and fall in love with the journey, fall in love with what you're doing. I think that's key. I want to have sufficient time to discuss our main topic today, you guys. And I have a sponsor today that I'm really excited about. And this is the first time we've discussed this sponsor on the pod.
Oh, okay.
Little surprise. Yeah, a little surprise. Today, I'd like to announce our first time sponsor. It's 7figure.com. Christian and I have been working on this for a long time. How can we have a resource for any of our listeners, anyone who's watching this, anyone who's in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group? How can you find up-to-date information on anything and everything that we have going on? Since we merged about 13, 14 months ago now, we have been working tirelessly on integrating all of our different businesses and really expanding our resources for both the internal agency, the downline agents, and agents all over the industry. Even if you're not contracted with us, we want to work with you. We want to help you. So if you head over to sevenfigure.com, that's sevenfigure.com, you can see the latest episodes of the podcast posted there every single day, as well as all of our other businesses and all of our other resources that can help you grow your business. So check it out, sevenfigure.com.
Boom. All right, guys, let's shift gears into the main topic for today's episode, and that is favorite product to cross-sell and why. I was thinking about this morning in preparation for the show, and I thought it was a very difficult question to answer, more honestly, and I thought it would open up a broader conversation on cross-selling in general and kind of which products do we like, and then, really kind of narrowing it down. If you had to pick one, what is that? I don't think we need to burst that bubble right off the bat. But Glenn, when I mention cross-selling, let's say to a Medicare client, right? And you had your pick on what you were going to cross-sell to them, right? And there's just something like, when you hear about it, what are some ones that really, tickle you, if you will? You're just like, ooh, I like
it's kind of like a fine dining experience where, certain beverages might be paired with certain entrees. You're not going to pair maybe I'm not a foodie. I probably should just stop right here with this analogy. But, are you going to pair a red wine with a burger? Probably not, right? Beer, whiskey, maybe. I think cross-selling is the same way. There are certain policies and products that pair together really well. They fit into each other like a puzzle piece. Medicare Advantage, hospital indemnity is like, that's the knee-jerk reaction, right? Mm-hmm. What's something that can potentially help give them even better coverage that their policy might be lacking in, right? A hospital indemnity plan allowing them to stay in the hospital even longer, and they don't have to worry about any out-of-pocket costs. That is, in my opinion, one of the simplest cross-sell opportunities. But there's so many. There's so many more. Again, if you are life and health licensed, the number of policies, which if you had asked me this 6 months into the business, I would have been like, health insurance and life insurance and accidental death insurance. Like I had very little. Now I'm like, there's probably like 50 different policies, 50 different types of coverages that you could try to figure out how you can kind of bundle and pair based on the lead you're working, based on what the primary offer is. If it's a policy review, what's the policy you're already reviewing? What's something that could pair with that? This is a huge opportunity that 95% of you are missing. You're not doing it. It's that simple. 95% of you who are listening to this, watching this, you're just not cross-selling.
It's true. And I feel like the biggest reason for that, I think there's two that I hear the most. And I think the first one is agents they just get a little fat and happy from the standpoint of like, they get the main product and they're like, yeah, sitting pretty. And then number two, I think they have a fear that if they, bring cross-selling into their presentation, that they're going to jeopardize the main product that they're trying to sell, right? And I think if you're doing it the right way, I don't think it has to be that way at all. I think there's a way where you can build it into your presentation to where, you don't come across like you have commission breath, as they say, right? Commission breath meaning like it's apparent, right? Have you ever gone to like a car dealership and you get a car and you go to the finance guy? The finance guy is always the biggest piece of fuck in the world, right? Like, if you want some advice from this podcast, anything they offer you, just say no. Be like,
No,
hey, I
no,
want to offer you a pot of gold just for saying yes. I'm gonna be like, no, came from you.
no.
You're Satan. But no, there's nothing they're ever gonna offer you that's a good deal for you. Nothing. That's just a rule of life. But
Yes, I agree.
But I say that to say, right, like they come across like they're trying to screw you. I get that feeling every time, right? Like they're trying to tack on as much as they can to your overall car purchase and get you to pay them more and more. It's apparent what they're doing. You don't want to come across like that necessarily, but there's a way that you can intricate it into your overall presentation and explanations to where it doesn't come across that way, but you're still offering the product in a very tasteful manner. I think hospital indemnity is a great one. It goes like peanut butter and jelly, if you will,
Woo.
with Medicare Advantage products. It's a great product to sell. I think probably the most common one that's sold by agents these days is dental.
Yeah.
I think more agents are cross-selling with dental than anything else. And I think that's because people want dental, vision, and hearing coverage. I think people almost like give the agent an out in a way to where like they are relentlessly and routinely asking the agent about it. And the agent's like, well, I guess I can do that. I got this little $40 policy here. You know what I mean? Like, but it just kind of falls into their laps in a sense.
Yeah.
I've told this story before. I don't know if I have on this show necessarily, but I'm sure you've heard the story. I think it's a funny and relatable story, so I'll quickly tell it. As many of you know, I came into the business with a parent that was into the business. Started my own agency. He didn't want me to have anything to do with his agency. Yeah, blah, 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 right? We bought his company about 3 years ago now. So he could retire because we outgrew his company. And one thing he taught me in my first 6 months was there's no good dental plans. That's what he would always say. There's no good dental plans. They're garbage. They're not worth anything. There's no good dental plans. Back in the day when I first started, the only dental plan I was even aware of was Medico's dental, vision, hearing policy. Like there was no Central United Life, which later became Manhattan Life. There was no Physicians Mutual, at least that agents could sell. There was no Emeritas, anything like that. And so Medico was the main thing, and in our area we had $1,000 and a $1,500 maximum payout limit. And so he was like, there's no good dental plans. And I would hear him sometimes, his door would be open. I would hear him on the phone when a client would call in wanting dental on a platter. And he would spend 30 minutes trying to talk them out of it. He would spend more time trying to convince them they don't need it than it would take to just sell the policy.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think there are some agents out there that are still like that.
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely.
And
when I came into the industry, the PDP plan, that's how agents were handling the PDP plans. I need prescription drug coverage. I'll call Medicare. I don't do that. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Go to Medicare.gov.
And here's the thing I noticed too, like when we bought his agency about several years ago and we started interacting with his clients, I noticed, and it was super apparent to me, that a lot of his clients had dental plans that they bought other places. So what was happening was they were calling up, he would spend 30, 40 minutes trying to tell them why they suck and why you shouldn't get it, trying to talk them out of it. Yep. And then they would be like, okay, hang up the phone. And then they'd call some place else and buy one there.
That's a liability. That's a liability for your book of business, ultimately, right? If they want this, they need this, they've got to have dental insurance. If that's the client's perspective and you're not willing to offer it and they get it somewhere else, now there's another agent that has essentially free range as far as being able to contact them regarding anything insurance related. And if they sell dental, they probably sell Medicare, guys, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, do you know how many dental only agents do we know? Does anybody know?
Dental only?
I only do dental.
Sorry.
No dental vision here.
Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement? I don't do that. Just dental hair.
Dental.
Standalone dental policies.
You should see my house. You should see my house.
But no, I think, dental and dental vision hearing products are just one that probably are sold by the most agents, but it's probably not because they try very hard. It's kind of probably because they just fall into their laps and the clients just really demand them. Cancer insurance
story.
is a big one. Although I think cancer insurance has value. I think a big part of the cancer insurance value proposition was on Part D prescription drug coverage, you had unlimited out of pocket for tier 5 medications on cancer drugs. Like Medicare Advantage plans, let's say you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you pay 20% co-insurance for chemotherapy, radiation, that kind of thing, right? You're up to your max out of pocket. Maybe it's $4, $5, $6 in most cases. Maybe less in some of the areas you guys are in. But the big kicker, and this was the argument to sell it to people that had med sups too, was on the drug coverage. Like the out-of-pocket potential in the drug coverage was enormous. Now that there's a $2,000 cap, what are you protecting? $2,000? I mean, I'm not saying there's no value to it, but like it's a little harder for me to see the value versus 3 or 4 years ago. This episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the 7 Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, it is a fact that getting around other people that are chasing the same ambitions and destinations in their business as you is a great thing, and it can propel your business years ahead than not getting around people and networking and going to live events. The 7 Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event. Every year we hear year after year after year that it is the event that has the best content. So many events nowadays, they do a lot of pitching from the stage. They're really just there to sell you things. And if nothing more than that, they're just a bunch of vendors put together and they're just nothing but networking. There's no content. The summit is the best of both worlds, you guys. The summit puts together great, fantastic speakers from all ends of the industry, and also get you in a room with like-minded individuals from all over the country that are trying to build their business just like you. The summit this year is taking place in Salt Lake City from June 22nd to 24th at the Hilton Hotel. We still have tickets available. We'd love to have you come out for the event. We are over 50% sold out at the time of recording this, but get your ticket now while you can. This event will sell out, and we'd love to see you there in Salt Lake City.
I think there's still this idea of you're almost disabled temporarily, right? Like let's say you have a very treatable cancer and you have to go through. I mean, there was a family friend of ours. She had breast cancer. She had serious chemotherapy. I mean, it was something like 40 different sessions. I mean, it became her full-time job. And she ended up beating it, which was awesome. But and she wasn't the primary breadwinner in the household. I don't even believe she was employed. But if you are the primary breadwinner in the household, you need to still work, right? Let's just say this is a senior that's still working, right? They still need to work. They still need to go do XYZ, whatever it is. That can cover, lost income. It can cover, whatever other. Guys, if you're not selling cancer insurance because of what Christian just said, drop some hate in the chat for Christian right now. Okay, I'm gonna tell Galen what you said on this stream. I'm calling her right now.
All I'm saying is that Part D portion was the number one selling point.
Right. I know.
I'm not saying there's not value in selling it. I think there is. I think I'm a big believer in cancer plans. I have one myself on me. And I think there's situations where like maybe their insurance won't pay for something, or the cancer doctor they want to go to is out of network, et cetera, right?
There you go.
Now
there
the cancer,
you go. Keep going. Keep going. Sell. Tell me. Let's go.
Now the cancer plan's probably not going to cover the full treatment.
No.
My cancer plan is $25,000 benefit. Let's say.
Yeah.
Even if you get 100,000, if you're going out of network and let's say you have no coverage, you need like $1 million in cancer coverage, right? So I'm not saying all I'm saying is I just feel like it's not as high on my totem pole as it used to be, if you will.
Can you get $1 million in cancer coverage?
I haven't looked for so long. I can't remember what the maximum is. I don't.
Curious to know.
There might be some carriers out there that allow it.
Probably.
I'm not sure, but it costs a fortune.
Yeah, it's probably some niche carrier that's like, we'll run it. We'll take that risk. 270 a month.
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, like cancer's one. There's people that like cancer, heart attack, and stroke. I'm not a big fan of the heart attack and stroke portion of it. I'm just not.
I'm not. I've never been a big critical illness fan either, personally.
And I'll tell you why. Med Sup, you're not going to pay for that stuff anyway. Medicare Advantage, you're not going to pay much for them. Like most Medicare Advantage plans, let's say you go to the hospital, you have a heart attack, you spend a couple nights in the hospital, you're under $1,000 and out of pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but again, anything, you can point to anything like that and say, oh, it can help you supplement your income and things like that.
Right.
That's still there, I suppose. But like, would I put it above hospital indemnity plans or dental vision hearing plans, or probably not, or even short-term care plans?
Well, this goes back to the pairing conversation, right? It's like, again, there are so many options, and that's my take with critical illness too, like heart attack, cancer, stroke. I don't have anything against that. It's just when I look at your list of options, it's an easier cross. Hospital indemnity is so much easier to bundle and cross sell, in my opinion, than to try to convince someone of a heart attack, critical illness plan, heart attack, cancer, stroke. I think, let's get some of these options out there. So short-term care is a great one. We talked about long-term care before. It's obviously harder to qualify, but still a potential option. Dental, vision, hearing, cancer, life insurance, final expense. Yeah. Accidental death.
Annuities, although we don't do annuities, but annuities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. Plenty of people who are chasing those and doing well. What else? What else aren't we thinking of? Pet insurance.
Home health care.
Okay, there you go.
Home health care. I've never been big on those either. My favorite ones right now. Should I just get right to the chase?
Just get to the point.
My favorite ones right now, like, we have processes internally where we present packages, right? Packages of protection, as Miss Galen Hendricks once coined it as. And the ones that I like the most are, dental, vision, hearing, just because it's obvious. If it's a Medicare Advantage plan, hospital indemnity. I'm not saying cancer plans won't be in there, but they'll probably be on like a higher end package, if you will. Like, it won't be the first thing that I'm going to probably recommend. I'm a big fan of short-term care. I think short-term care plans are very, very necessary in a world where long-term care plans are so niche. There's so few people that really want them. They're so expensive. Their underwriting is so intense. Like, it's very difficult for a Medicare beneficiary to qualify for them. They ask a zillion health questions. Short-term care plans are a great alternative. Usually going to be under $100 a month in premium. They'll pay for up to a year in a facility. I'm a big fan of those. I like final expense. Final expense, we haven't talked about it much, but final expense is something that we're integrating in a big way into our agency this year. So I like the final expense product. I think, man, if I had to pick one, let's say, it's tough because not everything's going to apply to MedSup and Medicare Advantage.
Right. It's kind of open-ended. It's subjective. It's hard to say that there's this one product that you should be offering every situation you're in, because that's simply not true.
You could make an argument for final expense. You could because
but with MedSup, there's going to be people that it doesn't make sense. where they don't need final expense. It just doesn't fit into their need column. Boom, roasted. Boom, roasted on the pod live, you guys.
Sure.
But I still think it's got to be in the top three. Top three. Let's go top instead of picking
top
one.
Three.
Go top three. Top three.
Okay. Final expense.
Yes.
Dental, vision, hearing.
Yes.
Hospital indemnity.
Yeah.
Those would be my three. And I think I'd put a cancer plan in number 4.
Yeah.
I like cancer plans. Maybe I'm tied. Like maybe 4A, 4B is going to be cancer plan and short-term care plan. I like that a lot.
I like that a lot too. Now, here's the thing: when it comes to offering, when it comes to positioning the actual cross sell, there's so many different ways you can do this. Some people do it up front before they even get to the primary offer. There was an agent I worked with for a really long time, and they integrated it into our Medicare supplement leads at Lead Heroes. Something we do at Lead Heroes, it's called custom calling. You pay us hourly. We can customize our calling scripts based on however you want. We'll almost say anything based on what you want. Almost, not literally, but almost anything. And so what this agent wanted us to do is we took our Medicare supplement lead, and then at the very end, we added a line about life insurance. And it was, do you have life insurance currently, or is that something that you'd like more information about? It was something literally as simple as that. And we would just run it, and it was shocking to me at the time. And we ran that campaign for a really, really long time. It was shocking to me to listen to the calls and see the notes from our callers, and to see how many people were like, "Oh yeah, I do need life insurance," or "I would like more information," or "I have this plan and I'm not sure if this is the right plan." And I remember talking to the agent being like, "So how much life insurance are you selling?" And he said, "For every 20 leads I'm getting, I'm writing a life insurance policy." And that was above and beyond any of the Medicare business he was already doing. So, and that doesn't sound like much. You get 100 leads, you write 5 life policies, but this is something that is up. Yeah, and the marketing's already paid for, right? You're already spending the marketing dollars for the Medicare, and now he's getting these life policies on top. I thought it was brilliant. I think, again, these are the types of opportunities that most of you aren't even asking about, you're not mentioning. But again, the point of that story is that agent was positioning the cross-sell way up front. A lot of times, and myself included, when I would be cross-selling, I was usually doing it on the back end. I was usually doing it kind of post-transaction, or we're in the middle of the transaction, and then I'm kind of mentioned, I've already gotten the close, I've gotten the yes on the whatever it is I'm selling. Hey, have you considered this? What about this? So what's your favorite way for positioning that cross-sell?
I think if it's a Medicare client, I think the most efficient and effective way to do it is to bundle packages right at the beginning of your presentation. Yeah. Like, let's say you're doing a turning 65 person, you should have packages put together that you can show them, like, this is your smaller end package, this is your medium package, this is your top tier package. Like, a lot of people have coined it as like bronze, silver, and gold, right? We have like images, we have like a graphics we made up last year for internal sales for that exact thing, bronze, silver, and gold, right? And we had a version of it for MedSup and a version of it for Medicare Advantage. So like, if I was going through a turning 65 presentation, I would do it like I normally do, but I'm trying to get them to go one direction or the other, MedSup, Medicare Advantage. Once they've chosen a path, then I break out the packages. Be like, okay, the best way you can protect yourself, in our opinion, is one of these 3 packages. But like, here's the packages in order from, maybe the lower end protection to a higher end tier protection. That's the best way, I think, to do it. Just bundle it into your sales process. For some agents, if they have trouble with that, another way you can do it is like pick one product you want to cross sell to start off with. And like hospital indemnity is a great one for this. Like, if you're doing a Medicare Advantage presentation, it's so easy to include a hospital indemnity into your presentation. It's just so easy. Like even if you just wanted to start off small. And so like an example to this would be you're doing your Medicare Advantage presentation, right? Let's say you're going through the summary benefits. You're sitting down with Mrs. Jones and you're going through it. And like when I got to the hospital portion of it, let's say your inpatient hospital copay. So let's say your inpatient hospital copay is $300 a day for 5 days and then zero after that. I'm going to be like, so Mrs. Jones, when you spend the night in the hospital as an inpatient, your copay is $300 a day for days 1 through 5. And then after that, you pay nothing. Now, there's, oh, okay. And
tell me more, Christian.
And Mrs. Jones, there's a little program that we can pair with this. I can't do this. But there, I'm gonna tell Mrs. Jones there's a little program that you can pair with this that's designed to cover some of the more expensive elements of your plan. It's almost like something that can supplement your plan in a way. It's typically $30 to $40 extra a month, but it's customizable. That can help with this. We'll come back to that later. And then I'm going to move on. I'm just like briefly mentioning it. I'm dropping the seed, planting the seed as I'm going. Maybe I get to skilled nursing. Be like, and Mrs. Jones, skilled nursing, overnight rehab. If you need to go to, like, let's say, institutionalized physical therapy for some time. First 20 days are zero. Days 21 through 100 are going to have a copay of $180 a day or whatever it is on the plan, right? And Mrs. Jones, that little plan I mentioned earlier that can go with this, that can help with this too. We'll talk about that later. And then I get to the ambulance. Oh, the ambulance is $250 on the ground or in the air, right? And that little plan, Mrs. Jones, I mentioned, that can help with this too. I'm going to mention it probably 3 or 4 times before I get to the end of the summary of benefits. I'm going to wrap up the Medicare Advantage sale, and then I'm going to be like, Mrs. Jones, remember that little plan I mentioned, that can kind of pair with this? Would you like to take a look at that and kind of see what it looks like? It's something we do recommend with these types of plans. It kind of increases your scope of coverage, and they're not very costly. And most of the time, they're at least going to want to take a look. They're at least going to want to look at a quote. Maybe they don't always buy it, but like, let's say half the time they do, right? You're going to convert at a really high clip. So like the best way to do it is to build your packages. But like, even if you just wanted to start slow and build one product into your presentation, that's a great way to start too.
Slow. Yeah, definitely start slow. You don't need to come in and try to bundle 5 things at once. I do think you can get to the point where you're doing that. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking there is like, I think, let's say you have someone who they're a great fit for a final expense plan. They need their Medicare supplement plan. And then maybe dental, vision, hearing as well. Let's say you've got those 3 that you're trying to offer. Instead of trying to get like the med sup done and then I'm going to pitch final expense now. And again, this comes from like personal experience of failure with cross selling. It's really hard to like get them to commit to that dollar point, go through a whole app, then come back and be like, okay, now I'm going to pitch you this. We're going to go through this. Now I'm going to pitch you this. We're going to go through this. If up front you're saying, hey, Mrs. Jones, so, we talked about the life insurance plan that would cover your funeral costs, the Medicare supplement plan, and then also getting dental, vision, hearing included. It looks like I can get all 3 of these done for $380 a month. Does that make sense? Will that fit into your budget? Okay, great. Yeah, you'll see these drafted separately because they are coming from separate carriers, but your total would be $380 a month. Getting that yes up front to that total premium amount, and then being able to go through, that'll save you so much headache, because as a consumer, right, I'll say yes that one, but trying to get me to come back and say yes over and over and over in the same transaction is a lot harder to commit to. Yeah, agreed.
Like when you're building your packages, a great way to do it is to give an estimated out the door price.
Yeah.
Like your bronze will be this, your silver will be this, your gold will be this, so they can really get an idea of it right up front. I'm a big believer in that. Is there any products we don't like?
That's what I was staring at that question in the chat. Shout out to Jason. Great question.
So for me,
looking at that.
I'm not a big fan of home health care. I don't know. Maybe someone can educate me on that. I've been through a lot of education on that over the years. I just am not nuts about it.
Why not? Tell the people. Tell the people. Why aren't you crazy about home health care? Because on the surface, it seems sexy to me, right?
Sure.
Who doesn't want to be taken care of at home so they don't have to, go to a facility, right?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. 9 times out of 10, when we have a client that is trying to fight going to a facility, one of two things happens. It's going to get a little dark.
Uh-oh.
I don't want to, but I'm just being real.
Yeah. We appreciate honesty on the pod, so continue.
They either pass away or
Right.
they go to the facility.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's very niche, I guess, is the point maybe you're trying to make, right?
Yeah.
Most people are either denying care or they're going to the hospital, right? That's the majority of people. But I do think there is a niche of people that are like,
sure,
man, it'd be really nice if a nurse came to the house.
There's a place for every product. I will say that.
For sure.
But if I'm being asked, like, what products do I not like, and I'm having to pick a couple, that one's going in my basket.
My number one that comes to top of mind when I saw this question is cash value life insurance. And honestly, I've whole life, early on in life, has grown on me over time. Like, I could see someone, and I've come across younger people who've gotten set up with big, solid whole life policies early on in life. That's actually grown on me. Specifically, if I had to pick one, it'd be like trying to cross sell a guaranteed universal life or an IUL, like doing like a GUL or an IUL to a senior, or maybe even a younger senior, maybe like someone in their late 50s. That's the one top of mind that I'm like, nah, I wouldn't, not a fan. Do not love that one.
Right. I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
Some others that come to mind is like long-term care. You know what I mean? Like, anytime we've quoted it for someone, it's almost always too expensive or they can't pass underwriting.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that's, and I know there's like one person that I know of in the whole country that is a big long-term care producer. And,
term life insurance.
Yeah, I don't love term life insurance. Like, I think
for an older person.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. We had a case. We had 2 cases actually last year where I was writing some term life policies. Was this last year? This might have been pre-merger. It might have been 2023.
I think it was I think this was further back.
And one was a client's new spouse. So they were on Medicare. The second was a younger guy, like 45, that found us on Google that called in. And the client's spouse, we started an application and we put in the application, and you know how there's things they need to get with the underwriters about sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they need to communicate with the insurance company. It took them 6 months to get it fully done. Oh. And then after that, they were declined.
So we were talking about like new topics, you guys, before the episode today. Like, what were some new ideas? One of the topics I had in mind was underwriting. I think underwriters. That's a whole podcast for sure.
It is
for sure.
And the younger guy, right? The younger guy comes into the office, meets with me. I have 3 more phone calls after that because he kept having questions. He gets a policy, submits it, and then within 30 days pulls the policy because he gets one from work.
Ugh. Yeah.
And I remember telling my office staff internally, like, I'm like, I hate term life because it's just such a long process sometimes.
Fully underwritten term life in larger dollar amounts can just sometimes be a nightmare. I have my own stories.
And for what the commission is, right, compared to like final expense, like.
Right.
Man, it's a rough one. So that's a good one. And there might be some life purists out there that are like, about that.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure there are. For sure
But
there are.
I don't like it.
We welcome your hate. We welcome your hate. We want your hate. Give us the hate. We
Let's see.
thrive on it.
Is there any other products? Like most products, I will admittedly say I like, and I'm like I see value in it. Right? There's a situation where we can offer that to a client. There's not a lot of products where I'm like intentionally like, I don't like you.
I'm not a huge fan of accidental death. There's a lot of people out there that love accidental death because it's sexy and flashy, and you can be like, "Hey, I can get you $200,000 in coverage right now," and it's a lot of times it's almost guaranteed issue. The premiums are crazy cheap, and it's like, guys, the writing's on the wall here. The premiums are cheap and the coverage is big, and there's very little underwriting because it doesn't pay out. It typically doesn't pay out. Look at court cases over denied claims for accidental death, and it's usually a legal battle to get those to pay out, unless it's just something crazy or like a car accident. Seems like car accidents are one of the few common claim payouts that I've seen where they're like, oh yeah, this was a car accident and it wasn't their fault. Like they got T-boned by a drunk driver. Okay,
So
they're
specific.
paying out that. Yeah. So that's one that I'm not a huge fan of. That I really didn't like writing. I wrote a few, but I really tried to avoid it. I was your dad. I was your dad with dental insurance when it came to accident. I was like, I don't know. I'm not doing accidental death. I'm not writing it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I remember back in the day, our FMO at the time, who was dirty birdie. But they did a contest for most dental vision hearing plans sold in a month, and you had to reach like a certain point, and if you got a certain point, you got a bonus, basically, right? I think I told you this story before, but it's good for the pod.
You did, yeah.
And I can use this as my final thoughts, if you will. Like, it's a good story, though.
Please do.
I was about a year in. I was maybe 11 or 12 months in as an agent. I'd never sold any dental policies before because I was indoctrinated that they were bad. And then I was like, I went to a training for the carrier, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like it. So I started selling it. I started working it into my sales presentation. I went back to some of my old clients and sold it. And you had to reach a certain amount and you'd win this bonus. I was the first person in the whole FMO to hit it that month, and I was number one in the whole FMO for that product that month, for this dental vision hearing product. I think it was like, I don't remember the number. It might have been 35 or 40 policies, something like that. And then I get a letter from the head FMO guy, who I thought was dirty. With a letter basically shaming my dad for not selling it.
Yeah.
And guess what the bonus was?
It was wasn't it $100?
Yep.
Oh man.
Don't spend it all at once.
Yeah, seriously. That's like that's a tip. It's like a tip on a dinner bill.
I tipped someone yesterday, a repair guy, $100 at my house, who didn't end up fixing anything. I tipped him for his time.
Good sir. Good sir. Here's $100. Guys, my final thoughts on today's episode. We covered a lot of this was great, and I think there's a part 2 coming on this one as well. There's a lot to talk about here with cross-selling. I'd love to get Galen on the pod. She is, as you know, queen of the bundle, and she is Medicare mama, and she's fantastic when it comes to cross-selling. And there's a lot of different ways of how you position a cross-sell and different ways that agents cross-sell. And we're not here to tell you like, this is the this is the product. This is how you need to cross-sell. I think you have to figure out how it fits in for you. Different products fit in for different agents and different scenarios, and how you're marketing and who you're marketing to. Like, there's so many variables to this that I think it can be tough to be super objective. if you're leading with final expense, obviously you're not going to cross-sell final expense. You would cross-sell something else.
Sure.
So that's the different scenarios we're talking about. So that's my final thoughts on today's episode. I'm going to say it one more time too. Freebie Friday, it's tomorrow. Comment below on today's stream here in the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group or on one of our previous streams that we did this week. 4 great episodes this week. Comment below on this one or any of them from this week, and it automatically enters you into the giveaway that we'll be doing tomorrow. 100 Medicare supplement leads from Lead Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to miss. This is going to be our biggest giveaway yet, and we're doing them every single week right here in Seven Figure Medicare Agent.
We appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. Do us a favor. If you're watching the replay, comment #Team Replay. If you're watching on or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, leave us a 5-star review. Make sure to subscribe on all platforms you're listening to, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Wishing you guys massive success. Thanks, everybody.